It's a beautiful morning here in South Wales. My name is Angela, and today I want to show you how to start about painting outdoors. You can join me in the garden. It's a good starting point if you're a bit nervous about doing landscapes in the public eye. If you want to learn how to pack your bag and what you need to take with you, which will help you get organised before you start to paint. If you enjoy this video, I will show you how you can use some techniques, follow my instructions, give you some ideas, and then you can give it a go. If you're happy with that, then you can move on to some more work outside yourself, and you'll have a lovely experience out in the natural world, enjoying the sunshine and even in the rain if you pluck up the courage. Hope you enjoy your video. If you do, please subscribe at the end. Thank you. In your pad, you are going to need obviously some paper, depending on what you're doing. This is watercolour paper, which is good quality. We're working with pencil, watercolours, pastels, so that's quite versatile. You're going to need your box of paints. Charcoal pencils, again, pastels, if you like using pastels. A bit messy but very good for spontaneous work. Bottle of water and some pots and a clean cup that you keep clean so that you can have a drink yourself. Small sketch pad which I use on locations when I'm not wanting to carry too much stuff. Rags for your hands. Paper towel for dabbing if you get a spillage of more paint than you want. Liner pencil, pen I should say, pencil, large and small brush, nicely tapered, good quality brushes. Some crocodile clips, rubber bands for holding paper down. These are useful when it's particularly windy to keep the paper in place. Also a mobile phone, make sure it's charged so that you can get in touch with somebody if you should have an accident or get lost. Okay, that's it. That's the list of bare essentials to start watercolour painting or sketching outdoors. These hydrangeas have a good composition, I've decided I'm going to use the 3 at the top of the bunch. There are some bushes in the hedgerows at the back which gives some nice straight angles, which counteracts the round shapes of the hydrangeas, and this will just be a rough idea. Obviously I'm going to simplify it down quite considerably to make it doable. Here I've decided to use a black ink liner pencil so that you can see it more clearly, as opposed to pencil, which will look quite faded and light, and with the light reflecting off the white of the paper it's very difficult to see pencil line. So also with this ink pen you do get a bit of staining and colour run, but sometimes that adds to the overall effect. My first process is just to suggest the big main shapes of the hydrangeas, put them in place, then put a few little details of some shapes of the petals. Don't fill in the whole thing, it is after all an outline sketch. Just some little detail that would be at the forefront of the actual composition then. And I would then continue then to put the leaves in. Just a basic, we're just looking for basic structure here. Take my time when I'm doing a sketch, looking more than drawing really. I'm always looking up and observing the actual picture in front of me, the image in front of me, the objects I should say. I'm not being too precise, but I want to get the feel of the hydrangeas, how the leaves overlap, different angles of the leaves, so that I can get a pleasing overall composition. When it comes to brush work, I tend to use just the one big brush. It's very rare in a sketch that I leave the little brush, because if you get a good brush that comes through a really fine tip, you can do your vertical lines pretty well. Stops you fiddling, stops you putting too much detail in. And at the end of the day, it's a sketch. It's meant to be a bit rough. It's not perfect finished painting. Also, you normally got a time limit. I'm looking at trying to do a sketch at least within half an hour, because it's the sort of maximum amount of time you want to be sitting down doing a sketch. Whereas a full-blown painting you might do over a number of days or a couple of months. Sorry about the noise here. Neighbour's doing some DIY, I think. Okay, you can see it building up now. Might have a bit of a break. I'll come back to you, leave it dry off for a bit, and we'll do a little bit more, obviously, to finish the flowers and see how things settle. It's a good idea to come away from your painting, just your sketch, just to come back with fresh eyes. That's what they say. You look at it from a different perspective. When you're sitting up close to it, you're not really seeing it. You're looking at the shapes and your colour mixing. When you come away and then you turn back to your painting, then you see it as a whole. So it's a good chance to think about where you want to go from there and make any adjustments and what you're going to do next, really. "75% looking, 25% painting." A scene can be quite daunting when it's quite complicated, and you really do have to practice observing by sketching and drawing, which helps you to eliminate unnecessary detail and just get an overall aspect. You're not painting every leaf, you're not painting every flower, you're just picking 3 main flowers, suggesting some colour in the background. And same with the leaves, you're not detailing every single leaf, you're just suggesting some of the main leaves, making some of it up as you go along. See how your mood takes you. During this process, I'm really looking at tone and the darks. I'm thinking about where the darks are going to go. In the past, when you learn, you put the darks in, and then you have a bit of a fright and you think, oh, that's too dark. Actually, it does get a lot lighter, so don't panic. Problem is, when you do put it on dark, if it is too dark, the only way you can make it lighter is by wetting it all and trying to take it out, and it does spoil it in a bit. But this is a sketch, remember, so free and easy. If it goes wrong, what is it? Piece of paper. So that's what you've got to keep in mind. It's not a full-blown finished drawing, painting. You notice I use the brush on its side at various different angles. I use the paper upside down on its side at various different angles. So you're manipulating the paint, how it's going to run, where it's going to go, how much feeds in, how little feeds in. So you're thinking about all these things all at the same time, controlling how the mark sits. So only something that you learn by practicing. Very often we'll get halfway through a painting
and really not like it and think, oh, I'm not going anywhere with this. You have to persevere and really fight it sometimes to get through that point. You're not going to like a painting that's not finished because it's not finished. Now I'm looking at thinking about where the light is coming from. Where would my darker colours be? So for instance, if you think of a ball, and if the light shines on it from the right hand side like we have here, then you're going to have darker colours more on the left hand side. So you're keeping those things in mind all the way through. You put your darkers on your left, you keep your lighters on the top right hand side. When you're doing the leaves, the foliage, the darks, if you look at them, are underneath the flowers, and that helps the flowers pop out a bit then as well. Nature does the work for you, but you just have to translate it onto paper. When you're doing the flowers, there's a tendency to sort of pick out every petal. I think you have to do it precisely. Sometimes you just put a bloom on and just pick out 4 or 5 or 6 of the main petals that reach forward to you, that are visually clear enough for you to put a bit of detail in, but not too much. So you say, I'm still using this big brush, and in fact I probably won't end up using a small brush at all. I do have a few problems. I've got an umbrella above the camera here, and it's blowing in the wind, and I think it's affecting the light sensitivity of the camera, so sometimes we do get a little bit of a pale image, but if you keep with it, you can keep this, set yourself down with a light balance eventually. This is the first video I've ever done of myself painting, and it's all new territory for me. It's quite tricky setting up, and you've still got this, you've got a wind here which does affect how things dry as well, how quick your paint dries. That's another consideration you have to think about. At this point of a painting, it's a sort of point, I don't know where I'm going with it. But just keep referring back to the scene. Put in your main leaves. Suggest some where you think you need it for the sake of balance or tone. You're painting watercolours, but flowers in particular, because you want the colours to be fresh, because that's what's nice about watercolours is its freshness and clarity. You really need to be changing your water on a regular basis. I change mine in between the break. I would probably change about 3 or 4 times during the sketch. I've got 2 pots. I've got the one pot for cleaning the brush, and then I have another pot then for putting on a wash. However, I tend to swap them over if one gets dirtier than the other. So, but that's the idea behind it anyway. You've always got a cleaner water for your colour mixing than you have for washing your brush out. Okay, I've come back to the painting. It's dried a bit. Sometimes you need paper to dry so that you can get some harder edges in your work for the focused areas. So it's good to keep looking at the actual scene. When you're painting, you're looking at it all the time, but it's good to stop, come back, and then think, right, I quite like that being in it, I like this being in it. So you're looking for the main features that you want to be in it. You're looking at how the light bounces off things, so where you've got your lights and your darks. You've got your darks underneath the flowers here, the darkest darks. The lightest lights are on some of these green leaves. So you're looking at these things, observing them, you're thinking about how you can approach them as you're observing them. So it's a continuous review as you go along in the process of creating a sketch.
I hope you enjoyed watching me paint today. It's been a lovely experience this morning in the sunshine, and I'm sure that if you've been inspired, you'll go out yourself and do some painting in the outdoors. My next video will be out in the Brecon Beacons up on the mountain. Hopefully the weather will be just as nice, and if you want to join me, either subscribe or just click on when your fancy takes you. Hope you enjoy your painting. Goodbye.